What if I told you there's a village hidden in the mountains of Spain where there are 10,000 times more tourists per year than residents? Just 30 minutes from the expat capital Benidorm lies the quaint village of Guadalest. Home to around 200 people, this beautiful cliffside village attracts over 2 million tourists every year. So today we're going to find out why it's such a popular destination. 20% of residents of Alicante are actually expats, which means that they come from countries other than Spain. So that's just under 400,000 people that live in Alicante City, Benidorm and the surrounding towns. Part of my family is included in that, and the two major reasons for it are that it's much cheaper to live than England, and you also get the benefit of the great weather most of the year. For comparison, living in Alicante is 50 to 60% cheaper than living in London. So it's very clear why a lot of people come here to retire. And I've been lucky enough to visit many places in Spain already, but when I was looking for somewhere new to go, Guadalest came up and I'd never actually heard of it. It's currently the middle of January, so I am hoping that there's not too many tourists. In addition to that, it's a cold Monday morning. So we're going to get sorted and we're going to head over there now. And we've arrived in Guadalest. That was one of the sketchiest drives I've probably ever had in Spain. Just windy country roads everywhere. But here we are, safe and sound. Already just on how busy this car park is. I don't know why, but a bit naively, I thought it wasn't going to be as busy as you probably would expect in summer. But there's a lot of cars, a lot of buses, so clearly there's still tours going on in the middle of January. So this right here is the main street in Guadalest. Literally, this is it. So this is the full map of Guadalest. We're around about here where that red mark is. So there's just this tiny little ring road, and then you go up into the old town and you've got the likes of the castle, etc. So I think we'll start off, we'll get a cafe and see what we're going to do today. So we've got a croissant, pan au chocolat and 2 coffees for €9.80. Which actually isn't that bad. I thought it'd be a lot more expensive here. What I will say is, it's the first place we've been, it's cash only. Just went to the cash point. I'll give you a minute just to guess how much it was going to charge us to take cash out. €5. I've never seen anything like that before. I think one thing you can quite clearly see as well is that pretty much every building here has a shop or has a cafe in it. If you look down the street, you've got a restaurant there, a pharmacy, real estate, tapas. All the way along there's just shops and cafes and bars and restaurants. First up, I think we'll go to the Micro Museum, which basically has all of these incredible small micro models of pretty much everything, so we're going to find out what's in there. You've got a bull ring constructed on the head of a pin, the Bible on a section of hair, a painting on a grain of rice. I mean, I think we're just going to kind of go in and see some wacky stuff here. 3 minutes in, not disappointed yet. Also got the Kremlin on a fossil here. There you go. It's incredible how small and detailed it still manages to be. Tell you what though, there's been about 6 in a row that, if I showed, this would be instantly demonetized. Right, let's see what's upstairs as well. Tell you what, some of the architecture though in this building is amazing. You've got sculptures like this, and then you turn around and you've got all of this, each with their own micros in them and their own story to tell. And it looks like most of these were done by a man called Manuel Usa. The problem with that is he was very into his hardcore nudity. Even the big sculptures are like fully nude. Man, I can't show this. I'm even worried just about what's in the background of these shots. I mean, this is one of the more tame ones. You've got a bloke who's got a snail for a head and arm. You know how as well, in a lot of art you get something with a really poetic title or something that describes it in such a nice niche way. Whereas here we've got green man emerging from a seed, or woman dressed as insect. I mean, it is exactly that when you look at it. I was pretty sure there was another floor to this, but when you go up, it just feels like that episode of The Simpsons where they rebuild Flanders' house.
Oh, something is definitely wrong with this hallway.
Just expecting like a little door at the top.
Come on in!
There you go. I think for €5, considering it was 2 floors, technically 2 different museums because you had the micro gigantic stuff on the top floor, it's definitely better than a lot of things you pay €5 for. One of the funniest things about Guadalest is it actually has more museums than streets. There's 8 museums here in total and just 3 main streets. So you come straight out and then again, another museum around the corner. I visited a lot of Spanish villages and towns over the years, but Guadalest feels different. Despite the fact it's only made up of a handful of narrow, windy streets, every corner has something going on. Each turn you made, you didn't know if you were going to find a new cafe, shop, or lookout point onto the valleys below. I mean, if you look just up here, like this is the route up to the castle, and then you've got a tiny little balcony in that alcove. Reminds me a lot of Asia as well, with the big palm trees and the steep slopes. Reminds me a lot of Vietnam and sort of northern Vietnam. Why is it every time we get somewhere, it's just grey skies? I mean, if you look over here, in the distance, why? That looks so much like Mount Doom. It's ridiculous. Didn't realise Mordor was actually in southern Spain. So up here, you've got the main town square. Again, more arts and craft shops and touristy things. And then this view, right onto the reservoir. Beautiful, like turquoisey waters right across the mountain range. It is very easy to see why so many people come to visit. So at the moment, this reservoir is the water supply for the coastal areas because of the tourism. And as you can see, it seems to be a little bit dried up. And I think it's just because there hasn't been that much rainfall recently. You've also got a couple of houses and things around here, and my God, it must be amazing to live. You've got that red one just in the distance, and then over there, just in the trees and the clearing, it looks to be, it's like a 3-story. It might be actually a little village or a farmhouse, I guess. There's a couple of different properties there. Oh, waking up in the morning and having a coffee here. Bliss. Just looking around now, honestly, you get lost in these streets. I don't know where we've been, where we haven't. There's that many cafes and shops, pretty much selling the same stuff, if I'm honest. Again, here you've got more handcrafted ornaments, more postcards as well, and even more, we've got dream catchers. The thing is as well, it is quite nice to see, but when every single shop along the street sells the same stuff, it does ruin it a little bit. And I know, again, they've done really well to capitalise off the tourism and the location, but it just seems like everyone's setting up a shop for the sake of setting up a shop. And you just wonder how much business does everybody get if they're selling the same stuff. And the thing is as well, and I'd like to be corrected if I'm wrong, but most of this isn't going to be handcrafted by the shop salesman. It's probably just imported stuff that they bought to sell. But regardless, if you're somebody who likes that kind of stuff, then fair play. There's plenty of it. It was something that was bugging me. And walking around these shops, very little of what was for sale felt relevant or personal to Guadalest. Like I mentioned, a lot of the stuff was likely bought from wholesale websites made in China. 1 or 2 shops I could maybe play it off, but it was shop after shop walking through the village. Now, with all of these shops in the old town, it does give me mixed feelings. On one hand, you are making the most out of the tourism. Of course, if you're getting 2 million people visiting here every year, there's bound to be people that are going to be buying stuff. But on the other hand, it does take away a little bit from the charm, especially when you're seeing the same displays after every single shop. But again, then the other side is that if it wasn't filled with shops, then it might be a little bit more dead. Not as much to see, not as much to do. So I don't know. It's a weird one. I don't really have a solution for it either way, but I guess if you've got a town that only has 200 residents and you're getting up to 2 million tourists a year, it does make the most sense to make the most of it. So this is Casa Orduña, which is the entrance to the castle.
Hola, para dos entradas, por favor.
Gracias. So this is the Grand House, and it was actually built in 1644, just after the earthquake devastated the area. And as you would have guessed, it was built by the Orduñas family. So they were actually of Basque lineage, and they came to the Valenciana region and then were sent to Guadalest to keep hold of the fort. So they served as guardians of the fortress for up to 300 years. And now the house is on show for the public to see. One of the most important things it does is it allows you entrance up to the castle for the best viewpoints of the entire town. Managed to keep everything intact, and they've also got furniture in here. Really does give you that proper homely vibe. I think it's a rarity that I come to like a house or like a family museum and actually feel connection with it in any way, but the way that they've maintained it, it really does feel like you're just walking through somebody's house. Like you've got one of the bedrooms there, cabinets, it's got some of the family portraits as well on the walls. No, it is. I'm genuinely quite impressed with how well they've maintained this and how they've managed to lay everything out to give it that vibe. You know what? Good work. Well done. It's hard to do. And here you've got the very literal family tree. Right at the bottom you've got Hernando de Orduña. Then going up you've got the Orduña y Contraveria. And all the way you've got all of the crests and heraldic symbols of each family. And then up here you've got a painting which I believe was from the bombardment under the Spanish Succession War. 1708 that was. As I mentioned, Guadalest has been through hell and back with many different battles over the years. And 2 earthquakes. So the castle was actually built in the 11th century by the Moors, of course because of its fantastic strategic position. But then in 1245 the Christians captured it back during the Reconquista, and you can probably tell that means the Reconquest, which is when they took the land back from the Moors and pushed them back into what is currently present-day Africa. And then if you fast forward to the 16th and 17th century, 2 earthquakes hit Guadalest, which we saw before had taken a real hit on the bottom of the castle, which is of course where this house now stands. France. And then you had the Spanish Succession War, which was shown in that painting. So for a town of just 300 people, and that population's pretty much maintained throughout its entire history, it has been one hell of a journey. So now up to the castle. You know what, a lot of places would just charge you direct entry up to a castle or a viewpoint, but having you go through a museum actually does give it that little bit more value. And I wasn't expecting much. I didn't know much about it before we went in, but I think it was worth it. Like, just for that alone. And then the castle almost feels like an added benefit. Right now we're about to get the best views in probably all of southern Spain. So here you've got a list of all of the different kings and queens of Valencia, Aragon and Barcelona. Starting with, of course, Jean I the Conqueror back in the 1200s. And then going all the way down here to the bottom, which is today's King Philippe VI. But anyway, here's the view that you've all been waiting for. So there's the bell tower, and then it looks all the way down, all the way far in the distance. You've got the sea and where Benidorm is, and then swinging around, you've got the reservoir just down there, the town, the old town just below it as well. And then you've got all of the mountains in the background as well. It really does capture that vibe. You can see why it was such a sought after strategic point as well. The fact it's so far up, but you get views of the entire region, so you can just imagine, you know, if you were trying to see off an invasion, you'd see them from miles away. It really is fantastic that they find formations like this to build strategic lookouts and castles and keeps on top of. And as well, just with the erosion of the rock around it, you've got these high, massive mountain peaks that kind of capture all of the weather within it. And then you've got that lookout onto the sea as well, so you can see for miles. Of course, we wouldn't have all of the houses and the buildings that we do have in the modern day back then. So we've reached the highest point of Guadalest, and now I think it's only fitting to go to the lowest. So as I mentioned, there's a few smaller towns with, again, just a population of around 200-300 dotted around Guadalest and around the reservoir. And even further from that, you've got a few people's homes and houses. So you can see down there, we've got a pretty nice house. It does look like it's under repair from here. Got another little place here, and there's a few more dotted around over in the mountains over the other side. And we've made it to the bottom of the reservoir. And today, it's kind of made me think a little bit more about tourism. You know, I think a lot of people do just like to get those sunny holidays, sit on the beach and chill out. But with a lot of places like the south of Spain, there's so many hidden spots. I mean, you know, this is pretty touristy with 2 million visitors a year, but there's not a lot of people, I would imagine, that come to Benidorm or even live here as expats that actually come out and check what's around them and visit these towns and cities. And, you know, if you've got 2 weeks off work and you just want to chill out, I think perfect, you know, if that's your kind of thing, just to sit next to a beach and sit on a sun lounger, amazing, chill out and enjoy it. But I would just challenge anybody to come out and check some of these spots that might just be a drive away. You know, half an hour to an hour, you can probably get a bus if you don't drive. It's not that far, and it allows you to take in some of the amazing scenery and get hold of the culture and really understand the place that you're staying in. And that's what I really like to do. And, you know, as this three-parter of the south of Spain is kind of wrapping up just before we head to Madrid, it's been an opportunity for me to go to places that I wouldn't normally go to. You know, Guadalest, I'd never even heard of it before last month. Same with Albacete and Cuenca. I think I might have heard of them, but didn't know much about the history. So it was brilliant to go and experience that and see what these towns and cities have in terms of culture and history, and get steeped in that and understand, is it still there today? Is it under threat like Albacete was? And I wouldn't have been able to immerse myself if I didn't go to these places. So as I said, the next stop for me is Madrid. I've got one pretty fun video about Madrid to make, and then it's onwards to Mexico and the rest of Latin America. And again, there's so many places that you would never normally think twice about, or places that I'd never heard of before that have some amazing stories to be told and need to be investigated, and I can't wait to get over there and see what Latin America has to offer. But thank you so much for watching, guys. If you're new around here, make sure to subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys in Madrid.